I'm recording this because my granddaughter Chloe pestered me to. She says my story matters more than any diet book. I'm 92. I've watched every food fad since 1960 come and go like bad weather, and I ignored every single one. I'm here, alive and mostly kicking, because of 4 simple foods. But to understand why those 4 foods mean anything, you have to understand what I was running from. Let me tell you what happened. It starts in my mother's kitchen in Nebraska, 1935. The smell was always of earth and yeast. We were poor, but we ate from our land. My mother, Eleanor, taught me that food wasn't a trend, it was a chain, from soil to seed to table to strength. My father died young, worn out. She said it wasn't from the food, but from the worry. That lesson anchored me when I left that world for a very different one. I married Arthur in 1958. He was a rising executive. We moved to a shiny suburb. Suddenly, food was about status, not sustenance. The women in my bridge club whispered about calories. The first one I remember was the grapefruit diet. They'd eat steak and grapefruit and look miserable. I bring my potato salad made with real mayonnaise. They pitied me. Arthur would gently suggest I try to fit in. The pressure built until a single party made everything clear. It was a summer barbecue, 1964. Our hostess, Sylvia, proudly served a new space-age gelatin salad. It tasted like sweetened plastic. I brought a simple bean dish. Sylvia made a cutting remark about peasant food. I looked around at the pinched faces of women surviving on black coffee, at Arthur's embarrassed smile, and something snapped. I didn't want a longer life if it tasted like that. I decided right then to opt out. That set me on my own path. I stopped reading women's magazines. Arthur called it stubbornness. I called it sanity. While the world moved to margarine, I kept my butter. While they feared eggs, I ate them. My first food is the humble egg. I ate them nearly every morning. Arthur had a heart scare in 1972. The doctor put him on a strict diet. He followed it religiously. I did not. Our dinner tables became a quiet battleground. My second food is the potato. A simple roasted one with salt and bacon fat. It was my anchor. When the low-carb frenzy hit, I'd just smile and eat mine. Arthur would push his rice cake around his plate. He lost weight, but also his spark. The real test, however, was grief. Arthur died in 1985. Not from butter or eggs, but from a sudden stroke. The doctor said it was genetic. His diet hadn't saved him. In my grief, I stopped cooking. When I finally went back, I stood there lost. Then I picked up an onion, my third food. I started chopping. The tears came, mixing with the onions. I cooked it slowly until sweet. I realized I was cooking for me now. The onion became my teacher. Transformation requires a little breakdown first. My fourth food is sardines, canned in olive oil. I started in the 90s, but not for the omega-3 trend. I ate them because they were cheap and my cat loved the juice. It was practicality. My granddaughter Chloe would hold her nose. Nana, that's cat food. But she'd sit with me. That was the point, the sharing, not the superfood label. I saw the fat-free 90s, the Atkins revival. My friend Marge had her stomach stapled. I just kept eating my 4 foods. I outlived her. My children began to look at me differently. The defiance they saw as stubbornness now looked like wisdom. Last year, Chloe dragged me to her professor. I was a geriatric case study. The young doctor expected decline. When my blood work came back, he was baffled. My numbers were, in his words, remarkably unremarkable. "What's your regimen?" he asked. I said, eggs, potatoes, onions, and sardines, and I don't own a scale. He laughed. Chloe's look told me she finally understood. It was never about the 4 foods as magic bullets. The food didn't keep me alive. The thinking did. The choice to ignore the noise, to eat what felt steady and real. Those foods are just symbols. They let me spend my energy on living, not on worrying. The stress of chasing perfection is more toxic than any forbidden food. I'm not telling you to eat sardines. I'm telling you to find your own 4 foods. Find what's real for you. Ignore the frenzy. Eat with purpose, not panic. Cook simply. Share it. Let food be a chain. Now, if you'll excuse me, my potato is done. Chloe's coming for dinner, and I suspect she'll finally try a bite. I didn't know it then, but that quiet rebellion was the real start. You see, once I decided to opt out, I had to figure out what I was opting into. And honestly, it was lonely. Arthur tried to understand, but he was a company man. Fitting in was his job. So our kitchen became 2 separate countries. I'd be frying an egg in butter, and he'd be measuring out his dry toast. He'd look at my plate with a kind of sad longing. I felt guilty sometimes, but I also felt strong. The egg kept me steady. While my friends got the mid-morning shakes on their grapefruit, I was just fine. Then came the potato wars. That's what I call the low-carb craze. It was the late 70s, I think. Suddenly, everyone acted like a baked potato was a crime. Arthur brought home a book that said so. He started eating these rice cakes. They sounded like you were chewing on packing peanuts. I remember one night I roasted 2 beautiful russets, The skin got all crispy in the oven. I put one on his plate. He just stared at it. He said, "Margaret, the book says this is just empty starch." I said, "Arthur, the book didn't grow this. The earth did." He ate his rice cake. I ate my potato. It was a quiet, sad sound, him crunching on that dry thing. Our kids, Ben and Laura, they were teenagers then. They were confused. At home, I fed them my food: potato soup, egg salad, good roast chicken. At school, their friends talked about diet soda and Slim Fast. Laura came home once crying. A girl had called her fat because she ate a roll at lunch. My heart broke. I sat her down and made her a proper sandwich on real bread with butter. I told her that girl was hungry, and mean people are usually hungry somewhere inside. But it was hard for them. They loved their father, and they saw him trying so hard to follow the rules. And they loved me, but I was breaking all the rules. They were stuck in the middle. The real blow came in '85, Arthur's stroke. It was so fast. One minute he was here, the next he was gone. The doctor was very clear. It was probably his genes. His father went the same way. All those years of dry toast and rice cakes, they hadn't built a fortress. They just made him unhappy. At the funeral, I saw Sylvia and the other bridge club ladies. They were older, thinner, still whispering about the latest cleanse. They looked brittle to me, like a strong wind would snap them. I felt numb. After everyone left, the house was so quiet. I didn't cook for weeks. I lived on tea and toast. The kitchen felt like a museum of our battle. Then one day, I was just so tired of being sad and hungry. I walked in there. I didn't know what to do. My hand went to the vegetable bin and I pulled out an onion. Just a plain brown onion. I got out my old chopping board and my knife. I started cutting. The fumes hit my eyes and the tears came. Good, hard tears. For Arthur, for me, for all those silent meals. I cried and I chopped. I put the pieces in my mother's cast iron skillet with a knob of butter. I cooked them slow, the way I like them, until they turned soft and sweet and golden. Arthur always said they were too sweet, but he wasn't there, so I cooked them for me. I ate them right out of the pan, and they were the first real thing I tasted in a month. That onion taught me something. Before something gets sweet, it has to break down a little. Just like me. That onion taught me something. Before something gets sweet, it has to break down a little. Just like me. And you know what? After that, I was different. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely in the kitchen anymore. I started cooking for one. I'd make a big pot of potato and onion soup and eat it for 3 days. I'd scramble an egg for dinner. It was simple. It was quiet. The kids were grown and gone, living their own lives, caught in the new diet trends of their own time. Ben was all about fat-free snacks. Laura was trying that cabbage soup thing. They'd call and talk about it, and I'd just listen. I didn't have the energy to fight anymore. I'd made my peace with my plate. Then, about a year after Arthur was gone, Ben came to visit. He saw a can of sardines on my counter. He picked it up like it was a dead rodent. "Mom," he said, his voice all tight with concern. "What is this? You're not eating this, are you? The salt alone." I told him I was. He sat me down at the kitchen table, the same one where I'd fed him as a boy. He had that same look Arthur used to get, that sad, worried, I know better look. "Mom," he said, "you have to take care of yourself. We're worried. You're getting older. You need to follow a healthy plan. Look at Dad." And that's when it broke. That's when I really lost my temper. I looked right at my son, my boy who used to love my fried potatoes, and I said, "Look at Dad? Look at what?" He followed every plan they ever gave him. He ate the dry toast and the rice cakes, and he was miserable, and he's still gone. My voice was shaking. He died embarrassed of his own wife's cooking. He died thinking I was killing myself with butter, and it didn't save him, not one day. Ben looked like I'd slapped him. I felt terrible the second I said it. The worst part was, it was true. That was the cost. Arthur died worried about me, and I lived knowing I'd been a disappointment to him. We both lost. Ben left soon after. We didn't talk about it again for years. That silence was the price. That was the real cost of my quiet rebellion. I had my sanity, but I'd lost my husband's peace of mind, and for a while I lost my son's easy company. He still called, but it was careful. We talked about the weather. I kept eating my 4 foods. I got a cat, Oliver, for company. He liked the sardine juice. That made me laugh. My granddaughter Chloe was born around then. When she was little, she didn't see a stubborn old woman. She just saw her Nana. She'd sit at my table and make a face at my lunch. "That stinks, Nana," she'd say, giggling. But she'd stay. She'd color while I ate. That tiny companionship, that was my first hint of something sweet coming back. It wasn't an understanding. It was just a little girl who didn't want me to eat alone. And that was enough. And that was enough. It had to be. Looking back now, I see the real lesson wasn't in the food on my plate, but in the silence that grew around it. I was so proud of my quiet rebellion, of holding my ground, but I held it so tight I forgot to reach out. I let Arthur sit there with his rice cake, alone in his worry. I let Ben walk away from my table, thinking I valued being right more than I valued him. That was my mistake. The food didn't hurt me, but the stubbornness did. The love was supposed to be in the sharing, not just in the stubborn correctness of what was being shared. I should have made him his rice cake and then sat and eaten my potato right beside him. I should have said, "This is what works for me," and left it at that, without the silent judgment. The fight wasn't with them. It was with all that noise out there, and I took it out on the people closest to me. So here's my advice, plain as I can say it. Find your 4 foods, whatever they are. Cling to them. But then, for God's sake, loosen your grip. Don't let your plate become a wall. Don't perform your diet or your anti-diet for anyone. Just be there. If your husband wants his kale smoothie, make it for him. Then fry your egg. Eat together. The together is the nourishment. The point is the person across the table, not the philosophy on the plate. You think you're teaching them a lesson with your perfect choices, but you're just teaching them how to eat alone. Don't make my mistake. I had to lose Arthur and nearly lose Ben to see that the most toxic thing in my kitchen wasn't the butter, it was my own righteousness. And here's the hope, the real secret. It's never too late to set another place at the table. Ben started asking for my potato recipe a few years back. Not the fat-free version, the real one with the bacon fat. He came over one Sunday and we made them together. We didn't talk about diets or heart health. We talked about his dad, about how much Arthur loved a good baseball game. We cried a little into those potatoes, and it was sweet. That onion was right. Chloe comes over now, and she doesn't just sit with me, she asks questions. She wants to know how my mother cooked, what this old skillet has seen. She's learning, not about superfoods, but about a thread that goes from my mother's hands to mine and now to hers. That thread is stronger than any trend. You still have time. Maybe not decades, but you have now. And now is enough to pass on a recipe, to share a meal, to mend a silence. That's the feast. That's what keeps you alive. So that's my story. Chloe says if this helps even one person step off that miserable treadmill of fear and fashion, it's worth it. She set up this recording. She says people can subscribe to this channel if they want to hear more stories like mine from folks who've lived through the noise and found their own quiet tune. You can turn on notifications so you don't miss them. I don't know much about that, but she does. If what I've said rings a bell for you, maybe leave a comment down below and tell me what your 4 foods are. I'd love to know what's real and steady in your life. Or share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe a friend who's always chasing the next miracle in a bottle. Or a family member you've been butting heads with over the bread basket. Chloe also mentioned There's a place on her website where you can send in your own story if you've got one. She's collecting them. Says there's more wisdom in our kitchens than in all those shiny magazines.